Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, another of our short stories from a Chinese studio. The reason I've decided to share this one with the Ars Magica fandom is that it shows what a mundane person of slightly greater than average intelligence and with no understanding of magic theory can do to inconvenience a magician, and it also shows at the end a spell which to me seems familiar from the 3rd edition investitures of Kriaman Magi. The recording you're about to hear was made by Gershwin Kramer and released through LibriVox into the public domain. Thank you to Gershwin and all of the production team over at LibriVox.
Mr. Han was a gentleman of good family, on very good intimate terms with a skillful Taoist priest and magician named Tan, who, when sitting amongst other guests, would suddenly become invisible. Mr. Han was extremely anxious to learn this art, but Tan refused all his entreaties. Not, as he said, because I want to keep the secret for myself, but simply as a matter of principle. To teach the superior man would be well enough. Others, however, would avail themselves of such knowledge to plunder their neighbors. There is no fear that you would do this, though even you might be tempted in certain ways. Mr. Han, finding all his efforts unavailing, flew into a great passion, and secretly arranged with his servants that they should give the magician a sound beating. And, in order to prevent his escape through the power of making himself invisible, he had his threshing floor covered with a fine ash dust, so that at any rate his footsteps would be seen, and the servants could strike just above them. He then inveigled Tan to the appointed spot, which had no sooner reached than Han's servants began to belabor him on all sides with leathern thongs. Tan immediately became invisible, but his footprints were clearly seen as he moved about hither, thither, to avoid the blows, and the servants went on striking above them until finally he succeeded in getting away. Mr. Han then went home, and subsequently Tan reappeared and told the servants that he could stay there no longer, adding that before he went, he intended to give them all a feast in return for many things they had done for him. And diving into his sleeve, he brought forth a quantity of delicious meats and wines, which he spread out upon the table, begging them to sit down and enjoy themselves. The servants did so, and one and all of them got drunk and insensible, upon which Tan picked each of them up and stowed them away in his sleeve. When Mr. Han heard of this, he begged Tan to perform some other trick, so Tan drew upon the wall a city, and knocking at the gate with his hand, it was instantly thrown open. He then put inside it his wallet and clothes, and stepping through the gateway himself, waved his hand and bade Mr. Han farewell. The city gates were now closed, and Tan vanished from their sight. It was said that he appeared again in Qingzhou, where he taught little boys to paint a circle on their hands, and, by dabbing this onto another person's face or clothes, to imprint the circle on the place, thus struck without a trace of it being left behind upon the hand.